Hi not board gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video we're going to be previewing a game which hits Kickstarter on the 5th of April, and this game is the wonderfully titled Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening. It's a game by Balas Sveda. Now I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, Balas. I know we've communicated over email, but I've never got the pronunciation of your name, so I do apologise for that. And as I say, this hits Kickstarter on the 5th of April. The link will be in the description below. Now, Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening is this kind of Euro adventure game hybrid, sandboxy type game set in this wonderful kingdom where you've got to try and gain enough kind of jewels and resources to get your way into Dimara, which is this kind of, you go through these magical portals to get into Dimara. That is the aim of the game, and the beauty of Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening, is it has many different game modes, and we'll talk about the different game modes in a wee while, but it's also different player counts as well. So it's 1 to 4 players, either competitively, semi-co-op, or indeed as a solo game. And of course, Not Board Gaming being a solo channel, we're going to be looking at the solo mode today. So I'll tell you a little bit more in a wee while about the detail about exactly what Legacy of Thracks is, how it plays, how the solo game plays. But first of all, this is the premiere video from my redesigned game room stroke studio. It's been a long time coming, having quite a few renovations in the house. I know the lighting's not quite right and maybe some other things need to do, but I hope this looks better than some of my previous videos from my dining room. So anyway, back to Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening. What exactly is Legacy of Thracks? Well, as I mentioned, it's this kind of sandboxy type game where you are going to play a hero of a particular clan. Now in the game there are 4 clans. There's the Mage clan, there's the Engineer clan, the Warrior clan, and the Shadow clan. But as a solo player you won't be able to play as the Shadow clan because they are going to be the AI opponent that's trying to get to Dimara before you. And as I mentioned, there are different modes in there as well. So if I just pull up the rule book, it tells me that the various modes are, you've got the basic mode, which is probably what most people will play. You have a clan mode, you have a shadow mode, and you also have the solo mode. And the solo mode is a variant on the shadow mode. Now, the good thing about it is it comes with a really comprehensive rulebook, and I know this is still in development, but it's really nicely laid out rulebook with lots of pictograms, lots of detail on there about what you can do. And if you want to know more about what's happening, it also comes with a massive storybook as well. This thing is huge, and it gives you like loads and loads and loads of information about what's happened in the land where you're at, why you're trying to get to Dimara, the different clans, etc. It's a really nice addition for people that like to feel a little bit more immersed in your game. Now in the game, as I mentioned, you're going to be playing as a solo game. You're going to be playing one of these clans. So say you're the Mage clan, and you're also going to have a kind of an NPC on the board that you're going to control as well, and you're going to traverse around the map. You're going to start building up your character, trying to get stronger, because each character comes with their own particular deck of cards. And in the solo mode, those cards are purely for you. Now in some of the games you kind of mix and match in there, but they're for you, and you're going to pull off them as the game goes on. There will be certain actions that allow you to pull out of your deck certain cards, and then you can play them to get stronger and stronger. You're also going to be collecting resources like gold, like silver, like mana and glory, and then there's your health on there as well, and we'll talk about how health works in a wee while, because that's part of your kind of combat mechanic, of course, but also it's a resource that you have to spend for certain places on the board as well. And you can be upgrading those, but then you're going to be using those resources, your gold, your silver, your mana, to pay for certain things and even move around the map. And there are also a number of crystals as well that you're going to want to collect as you traverse around the map, as well as relics. You see, not only does the game have kind of 4 modes, not only is it soloable and it has kind of 1 to 4 players and it's cooperative and semi-co-op and it's competitive, etc. It also has asymmetrical players, and the aim of the game to get into Dimara is by unlocking a certain number of magical portals, and the game gives you kind of 3 modes that you can do on here. You can have rush mode for a quick game, normal mode for a standard game, and then take those off, those kind of blockers off, and you can have kind of a full length game, you can kind of maximize the length game if you like, or really prolong your experience in Dimara. And let me tell you, the rush mode may seem like a safe bet for your first game, because I don't know about you, I like to go in on shorter games on my first game. No, not on your first game of Legacy of Thracks. You will not have enough time to do anywhere near enough that you want to do. So I do recommend, as a solo gamer, that you will start on at least the normal mode. So that's kind of a brief overview on the game. As I say, you're going to be upgrading your character, collecting crystals, collecting relics, conquering certain parts of the map, avoiding the shadow player, and trying to get enough power behind you so you can reach Dimara past those magical portals before the shadow player can. So look, before we talk about the specifics of the game, I just want to show you just how much table real estate it takes up, because this is a big game. I really wasn't kidding when I said it was big. I cannot fit it all on my screen. You see, we start over there and we end over here with some decks and some other cards. There is a lot of space taken up by this game, but it's glorious. It looks absolutely fantastic. You have the map of the world that you're going to be traversing on up at the top there. You have Dimara right at the top, so just right up there. As you can see, Dimara just there, as well the gates you've got to head through to get to Dimara. Over here on the left hand side is a separate board for the shadow power, and that is the shadow character that you're going to be playing against in the solo game. And yes, you can also use that in a semi-co-op game as well. You have the player boards down here, so the solo game uses the asymmetrical player boards with their resource track, with their deck of cards. Over here we have the event decks, and you can see they're slightly different colours, and I'll explain how that works in a bit. You have a really handy reference as well, and trust me, you're going to need this for your first few games. You also have Arwell's Blessing, which is part of the solo game as well. And you may be able to see on the map, and we'll look at the map a little bit closer in a wee while, there are lots of different locations on there, because each location gives you slightly different actions on there. And you have this really handy location actions board reference sheet on there as well. So as I mentioned, the game is played over a number of rounds, depending on whether you're on rush, normal, or extended mode, or epic mode as it's called there. And here is your round counter basically. So after each round, after you've gone and the shadow players drawn their events and done what they need to do, you're going to move that up. And as you can see in the rush mode, there's only 6 rounds. Normal mode is 9 and the epic mode is 12 up there. So there's a lot to kind of fit in, and that's why I said right at the beginning, maybe go for normal mode on your first game, because trying to fit everything in and get your strategies down on a rush mode is probably not going to do you any favours, to tell you the truth. Now you can see scattered throughout the map we have various things. We have these relics, and these are what you're going to collect to try and get you into Dimara. So you're going to have to do certain actions and commit certain tasks I say, to get some of those relics. And you can also see that there are mines on there which produce these crystals as well, and you're going to need those crystals not only to kind of help you get into Dimara and past the gates at the top, or the portals at the top, but also to help you upgrade throughout the game as well. You're going to buy things with those, as well as your resources down here: gold, silver, mana and health. So before we talk about the specifics, I just wanted to give you an overview of exactly what the game looks like, because I'm not kidding when I say, you know, I've got a fairly big table and it takes up a lot of space on this table, but it's wonderfully glorious at the same time, with some fantastic artwork on that map. So that's kind of a brief overview of the game, and also of the game board and the pieces. Now, in a game that's this big, that's got this much going on, and in a preview video, I'm not going to go into every single rule in the game, because as you progress through a game of Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening, you're going to encounter many different situations. Your character, depending on which character you choose, and also how you play, is going to change in a wildly different way every time you play it. Now, as I said, when I first played it, I played it on rush mode, and I then extended that to the normal mode. And if you get the game, trust me, that's the way that you're really going to want to play this. You're going to want to learn the mechanisms, because that, you know, 6-round timer may seem like it's significant, but once you start understanding the flow of the game and trying to achieve certain things and trying to traverse from one area of the map to the other, you'll realize that rush mode it's actually going to be for experienced players. So I would say initially try to play the game on the normal mode so you can get used to the mechanisms and the kind of strategies that you're going to need to deploy, because trust me, it really isn't an easy game to win. I haven't won it yet. I've been so close twice, but I haven't managed to win the game just yet. So what we'll do now is I'll take you through kind of a flow of a particular round in the solo experience of Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening, and just let you know kind of a round of how the solo mode plays, a taste, purely a taste of how the game is and what the game has to offer you. And then we'll come back after we've done that one round and we'll have a talk about, you know, my thoughts on the game then. So we're going to go into a round of the solo game, and I'm not really going to go into the setup of the solo game, because to understand the setup of the solo game, you have to understand the setup of the main game, and that would just probably go on too long for everybody. But I'll give you an overview of some of the key components on the board. So my character that I'm playing is the Mage Clan, and that's Adriel, and here you can see kind of 2 tracks, and these tracks are upgrade tracks because at certain points and certain things in the game are going to allow you to move up these tracks, and they will give you certain kind of boons and improve your character throughout the game. You're also going to have each clan has their own particular deck of cards, and whichever clan you choose to play as is going to have their deck of cards. And here's the cards here. Here's cards I've played, and here's cards in my hand, because at certain points in the game you're going to draw from that deck. Now over on the right here is your resource board. So we have silver, we have gold, we have mana, we have your health, and we also have glory down here as well. And you will earn glory by doing certain things in the game, winning certain battles, etc. And that's kind of where you're going to, that's the main part of what you need to keep on top of there, is kind of your resource track, because what you want to make sure is you've got enough resources to do actions, because no matter what you do in the game, it's going to cost you some of these actions. And so what we'll do now, we'll talk about the flow of the game and how it happens. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to receive your resources, and every player at the beginning of their round will receive 2 mana. So you get 2 mana, 1, 2, and you will also get 6 gold as well, so we'll move that up to 6. However, if you conquered any castles, you will also get 2 for each castle that you conquered as well. Now, you don't have to spend all your resources in a round. It doesn't reset to 0. So if I finish this round with 2 mana, that I know that I will get actually 4 mana the next go. I'll be on to 4 mana, or maybe even 6 mana. And again, there are certain things in the game which will allow you to increase your mana. So the first thing you do, as I say, is you're going to receive your resources. Then we're going to move into the production phase. And before you actually took your kind of income for the day, the first thing you would do is move the round marker up 1. And as I say, once it gets to 6, that's rush mode done. Once it gets to 9, that's normal mode. Once it gets to 12, that's epic mode. If you're not in Dimara by the end of whichever game mode you've chosen, then you've lost the game. So after you've increased the day counter and you've gathered your resources, you're going to roll the production die. Now, as I mentioned, this is obviously a prototype, so I'm not saying this is a final die, but you can see various things on there, and that's going to create either certain coloured crystals or relics, or a combination of both. So what we'll do here, we'll roll that and we'll see what happens. Right, okay, so this has come up with a green colour on there and also a relic symbol. So what we're going to do now is we're going to place a green crystal on a mine that doesn't have a green crystal on it. And if it's a relic on there, we enter a relic into an empty relic location. So on the board, you're looking for a green mine. You can see these here without a green crystal on. And to be honest, they've all got crystals on them. But say, for example, this one didn't have a crystal on there. What I would do is I'd take a green crystal and I would place it on that mine. That means it is now there for the taking. But now we want to look at and see if we can find any relic locations that are empty, that don't have a relic in them, and where we can place a relic. So there are 6 relic locations on the map, and you're looking for an empty one. If there aren't any empty, then of course you can't place a relic. These are relic locations. And as you can see, we have an empty one there, so I'm going to take one of these relics and put that on there. And relics are really, really important. You cannot open the portals and win the game without having relics. So now we're going to get into the action phase. So we've increased the day counter, we've gathered our resources, we've rolled for production, and now we get into the action phase. And in the action phase, you're going to control 2 characters. So first of all, we have the hero, and as we mentioned, we have Adriel here, and he's your main character on the board, but you're also going to control a singular lost soul. And think of them as helpers. They're gatherers. They're going to go around and they're going to collect gems from mines that you're going to go back to your kind of to your castle, and you're going to be able to use those gems and crystals to buy things in the game. And you can mix and match how you want to use your characters, but in the main, you're probably going to be using your hero more than you're going to be using your lost soul. But do not negate just how useful that lost soul is. Now, one of the key actions that you need to do in the game is obviously move. And you'd think move would be a relatively straightforward thing to do, but no, it costs you resource. For example, if you look here between these locations, you can see these 2 dashed lines here. They are roads. There's a single one there, there's one there, there's 3 between those 2 locations and 2 there. For me to move my hero, I have to pay the gold cost of any of those dashed lines that there are. So therefore, if I wanted to move to this relic location from where I was at that portal gate there, that would cost me 1 gold from my map, from my resources. Let me just put that there. So if I wanted to move from there to there, that would cost me, I'll start off with 6, that would mean I would only have 5 gold. Same happens with your lost soul, except it's not gold that we're using there, we're using mana. And for your lost soul to move between any one location and any adjacent location, doesn't matter how many roads are there, that is going to cost 1 mana. So that's the key thing. Movement is a resource. For your hero, it's powered by gold. For your lost soul, it's powered by mana. Before we talk about the other actions that are available, I just want to go over some of the icons on this location list, because the icons are also repeated on the board and they tell you exactly what you need to pay when you are there. So for example, if we look at this icon here, which is a hero's helmet, if you like, or it's a helmet, only your hero can perform the location action on those particular locations. So if your lost soul is there, they can't perform it. Similarly here, if we look at mine, you can see that has a different icon. That is a pure lost soul icon. That means if that location, for example, all of the mines only have a lost soul icon, that means only the lost souls can gather the crystals at the mines. There are also some other icons on here that I want to discuss. So if we look at this particular symbol here, you can see this swirly yellow symbol. It's got 1 dot there. That means for me to perform a tunnel action, I would have to pay 1 gold. So, you know, if I'd moved from one space to a space with a tunnel, that was 1 gold for me to move there. To then perform that action, it would cost me another gold. If we look at this action here, or this icon here, down below the hero icon, you can see this kind of inverted triangle there that's red. And you can see 2 dots. That means that's going to cost me 2 health. So health is actually a resource in the game as well. You're going to have to spend your health to perform certain actions. And the number of dots that are either next to the health or the gold, etc., that is how much of that particular resource you are going to have to pay. So those are the kind of main resources you're going to spend in the game. You're going to spend your gold to move and to perform certain actions. You're going to spend mana to move the lost souls, and you're also going to spend your health to perform certain actions at action locations. But they can give you and will give you some great bonuses if you go there. So let's have a look at some of these other actions here. So say you conquer the castle. So you put one of your flags on the castle. A hero's gone there, spent a health. They would get an action card. So you draw a card from your deck, put it into your hand, and they would also receive 2 gold, and each turn another 2 gold as well. Let's look down here. On a temple, you would go to a temple, you would spend 3 gold and you would get a quest card, and that's, let me just find a quest card, that's these cards here. So you can earn quests throughout the game, and here I would get this particular quest, I would complete it, and I would get a red and a yellow crystal if I had at any point 2 fortresses. So quests can be really good for getting things as well. We have some other icons as well. We have this one here, which is if I go to a relic and I'm a hero, I can then do a relic action. I can gain the relic from there. So I could gain that relic from where I've just moved here. At the mine, you can see this particular symbol, and that means I would get a crystal from there. And here at the armory, I can spend either a health or 2 gold, so either or there, and I can get a battle card, and that's these things here. And these are what you're going to need for combat, and I'll come on to how combat works in a wee while. There's also, if you go to a village and spend 2 gold, I can get a village advantage card. Now there are 6 village advantage cards laid out at the beginning of the game, and I've got one here. Okay, so village advantage card, and this one says receive 3 mana at the beginning of your turn instead of 2, which is really good. Obviously, you know, more mana that you can get. If I had this particular character and I'd got 3 villagers, then at the beginning of my turn I could pay 3 gold and receive 1 relic, only 1. So it has some ongoing abilities, but it also has some kind of one-use abilities if you're of this particular icon and you have the requirements on there as well. So village, there are only 6 village location cards, as I say, that you can gain. And I think that's it in terms of the symbols there. You've got the portals. You can move from one portal to another portal by spending your health, or you can move up to enter Dimara by doing that as well. But you've got to make sure that you have enough resources to beat the requirements of my Dimara. If I go to a healing well, I will get to maximum health as a hero. If I go to the source of life, I can get 1 health and also a bonus card as well, because there are bonus cards. And if I go to the capitals, again, I can get up to maximum health. So there are many different ways that you can start kind of improving and increasing your character as you move around the board and take the actions. But as you noticed, resources are absolutely key to performing those actions. So for example, here I am. I've taken my move here. It cost me a gold. Yeah, and now I'm at a relic place. And I am a hero, so I can take that relic, and that doesn't cost me anything. And that's absolutely great. So what I'll do is I will take that relic, and I'll put it back on my fortress over there, and that means I now have 3 relics to do what I want next. But we moved our lost soul, didn't we? So now what can I do? So I got 5 gold left, and maybe I could go elsewhere. So I've already conquered that there. So if I wanted to move, that's 2, 3. Oh yeah. This is not a great move for me, is it? Let's face it. I can go 1, 2, 3 and get to here, and then I'll have to pay 2 gold. So 1, 2, 3. I could pay my final 1, 2 gold, and I could then conquer that village, I believe. Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so we'll go 1, 2, 3. So that's 1, 2, 3. I have 2 gold left, so therefore I will spend my 2 gold. I will conquer that village, so I'll put a little flag on there, and here we go. We've got my lovely little purple flags for my mage character, but I also get to take yet another village location card. So here we go. Here are the village location cards here. When capturing a fortress, you can pay with 2 gold. Quests can be completed using any colour crystals. Using a portal is free. Pay 1 gold to build 1 road, and roads are really useful. They reduce your move cost. At the end of your turn, pay 2 gold and 1 HP to build roads. So I'm going to take this one, which is use portals for free, so rather than pay, because that is going to come in handy at the end of the game. So we've still got 1 mana left there as well, which, you know, I'm going to save basically until the next turn, because maybe in the next turn I will then have 3 mana and my lost soul can move even more places. So that's kind of my actions done there, but of course I've really abridged that, and that's why I said kind of when you're first playing the game, you've got to be really mindful of your actions, because what you want to do is your position on the board. You want to try and maximise getting as many relics as you can and finding ways to improve your character so that you're ready should the shadow player come and try and attack you, or as you get towards the end of the game, to enter Dimara and try and get through all those portals. So far I haven't really spoken about the shadow player, and you can see he's kind of up there at the top of the board. Now the aim of the shadow player is to go around there and really make a bugger of himself for you. He's going to get into combat with you, he's going to steal resources, etc. Going to really try and trick you out of the way and stop you getting to Dimara, because if you don't clear that before the end of the round, that means they've reached Dimara before you. So you can see here that we have, first of all, 3 different coloured cards. We have a black card, then a green-yellow card, and then a red-purple card. And you take these event cards for the shadow player and you lay 3 of them out. The one on the black card is always face up, so you kind of know if it's going to roll black, and I think there's like a 30% chance it's going to roll black, maybe. 50% chance it's going to roll black. So that is obviously going to be the preferred action that the shadow player is going to take. However, you don't know what these are, so if it's green, yellow, red or purple, you don't know what the event is going to be. So you're going to roll, first of all, for the shadow player's event. Let's see what happens. It's a green, so it's going to be this particular card here. So we're going to take this card and we'll talk about the effects that are in play on this particular card and how you resolve them for the shadow player. So if we look at this card, you will see a number of symbols on here, a number of icons on here, and you're going to work through them top to bottom for the shadow player. So we'll start in the top left here, and here you can see a picture of a skull with a +2. So let me just move you over to where the shadow player, the shadow power board is. So here we go, here's the shadow power board for the shadow player, and you can see the black skull there, and it starts on 0. So according to this card that we took, there we go, we're going to move this up by 2. So we'll move that 1 to 2, and you can see it goes up to 9. Now throughout the game it's going to hit 9 at least once and maybe a number of other times. But what happens when it hits 9? When the solo game, the first thing you're going to get is one of these curse tokens, and you don't want too many of these because you cannot win the game if you have 2 or more curse tokens. So you really don't want to start picking those up, so you want to try and have the resources to get rid of them. How do you get rid of them? Well, if you flip them over, it says on the back there that you have to discard 5 gold to get rid of a curse token. So again, that resource management comes really, really, really important for you. But also, you see, the shadow player has some shadow cards here, are darkness cards if you like. And what's going to happen every time it reaches 9, let's say you reset it to 0, you take a curse token, but you're also going to take a darkness card, and these have bad effects. So let's look at this one, for example. All clan players discard 2 cards you choose randomly from them, so you would shuffle your deck and get rid of 2 cards. This one says capture every castle. So therefore every castle has been captured. That means you would then have to try and overtake the castle. Remove all items from the relic and mine locations. That would clear the board of all the stuff that you need, which makes it very, very difficult. Let's say there are a number of these darkness cards. So that's the first part of that card done, is that we move the shadow player 2 spaces up on his shadow map. Now let's go back to the main board. Okay, the next thing is this here, and this tells me I've got to increase the shadow player's VP by 8. So we're going to move this VP up here. It's currently on 9, so that takes the shadow player to 18. So I've got to enter Dimara in time and have more victory points than the shadow player as well. So that's a really, really buggery thing, because those values vary on depending on what cards. For example, that one that was on black would have been to move it up 4. This one, which isn't a great card, is it, for me? It says to move it up 8. Now, what this symbol means here is there are various symbols. So let's take this card, for example. This says that I would have to move the shadow player 1 closer to that particular location, and that location is a temple. So I would have to move the shadow player 1 closer to the temple. However, that's not the card I drew. What this says is I have to move the shadow player 2 locations closer to my hero. So he's going to be exceptionally close to my hero now. So the shadow player is currently up here, and he's going to move 2 locations closer to my hero. So that's 1 and 2. So he's effectively now only 1 location away from my hero. What does that mean? If your hero is on a location within range discard one item of your choice from your capital. So I'm within one location of the shadow player, and therefore I have to discard one item of my choice from my capital. So here I have 2 green crystals, I have 3 relics, I have a red crystal, and I have a yellow crystal. I have to discard one. Let's get rid of one of the green crystals. So that green crystal has gone. Whew, that wasn't great as well, yeah? And here, finally, down on the bottom, it says, activate the source of control. Let me show you what the source of control is. So here there are various kind of sources of darkness that the shadow will do, and in the solo game it's going to be dictated by what was on the bottom of that card. And as we noticed, it said the source of control. Now you probably can't read it from the screen here. It says at the end of the shadow's turn, the shadow player randomly chooses a card in a clan player's hand, and that player must discard that card. Oh my god. So I have a hand of some 1, 2, 3, 4 cards I've got here. One of them, and some of them I want to keep because they're battle cards. And what I must do is shuffle that and choose one randomly. So we'll just turn my head away, and I will be losing a battle card. So I would lose that 3 battle card, which ain't great because it means when it comes to combat I'm going to be severely disadvantaged for that. So that's kind of, you know, the shadow player's turn there in terms of how it moves through that particular through those particular cards. So just to finalize the turn now, what happens is that card is discarded, that card moves down, and that card is going to be placed there. So you're constantly kind of cycling the market. Of course, if it was that card that was discarded and I'd used, any card that ends up in the black spot should always be kind of face up. Okay, so that's kind of a general gist on kind of the flow of the game and how the game works, but I haven't spoken about a particularly big thing that most people like to do, and that is, of course, combat. So let's talk about combat now. So combat is relatively straightforward in the game, and combat will occur if I move my hero into the same space as a shadow player, if they move their figure into my space, or there are certain cards like this one here which will initiate combat if you're in a certain range. So here it says if your hero is on a location within this range, and that's 2, so within 2 of the shadow player, move the shadow player to your hero's location and initiate a battle. Now, combat is going to take place based on the cards that you have in your hand. So throughout the game, you're going to get various cards. I mentioned the quest cards and your own cards from your deck, etc. But you're also going to get some battle cards. Now, I have 2 battle cards in my hand. I have a 3 and a 1. But if you look up there, there's a +1 modifier for the mage as well. So that gives me a total of 5 for my battle. Then what you do is you turn over the top card of the event card deck to find out how many battle cards from the battle card deck the shadow player is going to do. So here we go, event card, and you look down in this corner, bottom right corner down there, and that says 3, and those numbers range from 3 to 6. So you know they're going to draw between 3 and 6 from the battle card deck. So I've played my 2 cards, give me a total of 5. Now I'm going to draw 3 cards, 1, 2, 3 from the battle card deck. Let's see how the shadow player is going to do. So they've got a 0, they've got a 3, and they've got a 1. The modifiers don't count for them. So therefore, they've got a total of 4. That means I've actually won that battle, which is good. So if that shadow player was on my space, what I would do is I would move them back to any adjacent space. Okay. Secondly, I would earn a glory point on my track there, and the glory points are down at the bottom here. And as you move up the track, that gives you certain benefits throughout the game. Thirdly, what you'd also do is you're also going to take something from their fortress. So I'm going to take a red jewel, a crystal, put that into my area, and then I'd replenish that from the supply. So take another red crystal from the supply back into their area. So that's if I win the combat. But what happens if I lose? So if I lose the combat, let's put the shadow player back there. Of course, that's not good for me. The first thing I would do is knock down one of my health, basically. So he's defeated me and he's knocked my health back. Secondly, I'd move my figure to an adjacent location, but also I would choose an item within my fortress that I would have to return to the supply. So I would also lose an item there, and that can be really tricky. So, the shadow player, getting into combat with a shadow player is difficult in the early stages because you may not have the right kind of battle cards and cards in your hand to play, but also the fact that, you want to build up those resources nice and early there. So that's combat. Really kind of straightforward to do, kind of fun to do. It's not a combat heavy game. It's not necessarily something a tactic that you want to employ, but it does happen, and it's kind of fun to do as well. The other thing as well in the solo game is you have Arwell's Blessing here. So you can use this at certain points. So for example, this top one, use when you are attacked before drawing the event card for the number of battle cards. The Shadow Hero will use one less battle card. That's going to cost me 1 gold and 2 victory points. The Shadow Hero uses 2 less battle cards. Going to cost 2 gold and 4 victory points. Or no battle will be held. 3 gold and 6 victory points. Put the Shadow Hero on a neighbouring field. So Arwell's Blessing, you can use certain things after activating an event. You can cancel the effect, or after activating an event, you don't increase the shadow player's VP. You can use those at any point, but there are costs associated with them. So that's kind of the flow of the game. Of course, the aim of the game is to ensure that you get up to Dimara and that you have enough resources to unlock all the gates as you get through the portal, to clear Dimara, to unlock all those gates, and do that in the correct number of rounds that you've chosen for your game. That's 6 for Rush, 9 for normal, and 12 for epic. And that's it. That's kind of the flow of how Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening works. Okay, so that's a pretty brief run through the rules and the flow of the game of Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening, and the solo mode of the game. And as you can see, there's quite a bit going on in this game. And as I mentioned, a few times right now, your probably temptation when you first start playing this solo is going to be to play a rush mode. Don't. Try and play either a normal or an extended game, because this game absolutely sings when it comes to kind of defining your strategy. And to do that, you're going to have to play a few times to understand how quickly you're going to have to move around the board. There's not massive amounts of time to explore here, because that time marker moves up and the shadow power moves up, and you're trying to build up your hands and maximize your hands, take over fortresses and take over castles to get more resources. You're trying to upgrade the powers on your asymmetric power board, and all the while you're trying to collect jewels and relics to open the gates at the top, so when you enter Dimara, you can clear Dimara before the end of the game. And that's the really key thing. It's a massively time critical game, and it requires a lot of strategic thinking and some tactical play as well, but a lot of strategic thinking about mapping out your future moves. What do you need to unlock those gates? How are you going to traverse the board? Or is your hero going to traverse the board? Is the lost soul going to traverse the board and maximize what they can do on there? I like this shadow player mechanic. I think it works really, really well. It's not an overtly complex AI to get a hold of, or to get to grips with, should I say. And the card kind of drawing mechanism works really well as well. You're using that production die to choose which card comes out. The first one's turned over, so you can plan a third of the potential cards that come out there, but there's still some surprises on those 2 cards that are turned down, and that's really, really nice. You've got the combat mechanism, of course, which is really kind of straightforward to do. And as I mentioned, combat isn't a massive part in the game. You're probably not going to want to initiate too much combat, because you want to focus on leveling up and upgrading your character and choosing whichever of the remaining 3 clans outside of the Shadow clan that you want to choose. So you've got the mages, you've got the warriors, and you have the engineers as well. And each one brings a very different flavour to the game. I like this, and I like the fact that, for some games when you have multiple play modes and multiple types of play as well, so you have competitive, semi-co-op, you have solo, you have the clan mode, the basic mode, the shadow mode, etc. They can all get kind of a little bit jumbled up, but that doesn't happen in Legacy of Thracks. I think what Ballas has done here is created something where these interconnected mechanisms work really, really well together, and it brings a fresh and unique kind of flavour to this type of game, to the adventuring type of game. It's that wonderful, it hits the mark wonderfully, should I say, as a hybrid Euro adventure game, and I think that's really, really important. I think the development that's gone into this. And this is a prototype copy. Bear in mind, these are not the final assets at all, but it's one of the best designed prototypes I've seen. It's utterly fantastic. You're telling this tale as you go out across the land, pretty much like, you know, maybe in a game of something like Mage Knight. There's no real direct comparison between this and Mage Knight, other than you are traversing the land and creating your own adventure and upgrading your character as you try to do that. And similar with Mage Knight, obviously that is time bound, exactly the same here. Mechanisms wise, completely different. It brings this resource management, leveling, RPG aspect, the adventure aspect, the almost kind of collection aspect as well, where you're collecting gems from mines, or you're collecting relics, and you know, you're improving as you go. I've not even spoken about things like roads and how you can put roads down which improve kind of, or should I say, which reduce your travel costs on there, or things like some of the other cards like the quest cards, which really add to it, how you build up your hand from drawing from your deck, the special powers you unlock on your board, those village cards, a lot of these things. And as I say, your first couple of games you're probably going to lose. Now, I've lost every game I've played, so it's been close a couple of times. I've lost every game I've played, but I don't feel like I'm having a bad game when I'm losing. I can see that it's winnable as well, but it's not solvable, and I think that's the key thing for it, is every time you play the game you're going to have a very different adventure, certainly from the solo mode, because you're dependent on which of these cards come out of this event deck and in which order they come out of there as well. And there are a lot of them as well, so you can't really work the deck to your advantage in that respect. You know, you can't card count and think, well, those are out, so therefore this is going to happen. Maybe you can, but you'd have to understand a deck of, I don't know how many, 40, 50 cards, something like that, to be able to do that. So I really appreciate everything that's happening in Legacy of Thracks. I think it's going to be, for many people, a really exciting experience to get this to the table as a solo player, or with other players in a semi-co-op or cooperative mode as well. So for me, I think I cannot wait for this to fulfill and to see what the final version of Legacy of Thracks looks like. Does the board game industry need another game like this? You know, it's awash with various adventure games and various Euro games. You know, it doesn't need necessarily any other games of any other any genre. But when you get something that comes to the market that's as fresh and feels pretty unique like Legacy of Thracks, then you know you're in for a pretty interesting time. I think rules-wise, as you can tell from the video, there's quite a lot of rules there, and it took me 2 reads of the rule book plus a test game to really get those rules down. I'm sure, you know, even in the few games I've played now, I'm sure I'm almost there with the rules. Maybe I made a couple of errors in the video, I don't know. But for those of you that like to get immersed, this storybook is a really, really good read as well. It really does give you kind of a bit of a flow and a kind of a flavour of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and those background details really, really help. It's also a game that's ripe for expansions, and I'd really like to see Legacy of Thracks be successful, because I'd like to see what other expansions can come out for this. Now, this can be, I don't know, additional boards, additional play modes, maybe some further development of the shadow player character for the solo game, maybe additional decks of cards and etc. I think, you know, the world is quite literally its oyster, but to tell you the truth, when the oyster's this good, there's definitely a pearl in there. And I think that, you know, if you're going to back Legacy of Thracks and say it comes to Kickstarter on April 5th, the link is in the description below, and it looks like your type of game, then you're in for a real treat with this. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey of Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening, coming to Kickstarter on April the 5th by Balas Severa. And again, I probably got that wrong, so I do apologise, Balas. It's been an absolute joy previewing this. Please make sure you check out the Kickstarter. Thank you for joining me on this journey. My name's Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos, and one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.